and what will happen here on earth when they're pondering divorce. Because it's an epidemic in our
These programs were pre-recorded, and we just want to remind you to always consult your personal physician before making any changes.
Adventiste Radio Pretoria. Vanuit die voet van die Magaliesberg kom die klank van die kruis, deur stories, onderhoude en musiek wat inspireer, opbou en inlig. Stap saam met ons oor kruine en deurdale van profesie en groei nader, steeds nader aan Jesus elke sekond van elke program hier op Adventiste Radio Pretoria. Wie 'n oor het, laat hom hoor.
Goeiemiddag en hartlike welkom weer eens by ons hier by Adventiste Radio Pretoria en by Oop Gesprek. Van my Anina Wasserman sê ek vir julle welkom hier uit 'n pragtige, ek wil sê amper lente Pretoria. Ons gaan nou oorskakel en net vinnig luister na ons temalied, maar voor dit wil ek net vir julle lees wat sê die woord van God. 1 Korintiërs 10 vers 31, ek lees dit in Engels. Therefore, whatever you eat or drink, or whatever you do, do everything to the glory of God. Ons luister nou na There is a Balm in Gilead. You are listening to Open Discussion, and a warm welcome if you have just joined us. We are continuing our time with Dr. Jade Erasmus, and she is yet again personally in the studio with us today. Thank you, Dr. Jade.
It's lovely to be here again. Thank you for inviting me.
So today we're going to have a look at natural remedies, hydrotherapy, and of course the practical application thereof. But I want to remind everyone that we would love to hear from you. So please contact us at 060-248-1172. Send your WhatsApp, leave your comment in our YouTube comment box, and we will chat with you. Dr. Jade, if we can jump right in at the deep end, looking at natural remedies. Where would you start?
Yeah. I think the first thing I would say about natural remedies is that it's not always the first place to start. We are going to be discussing this today, but it's definitely not our first port of call, if I can put it that way. We have spent the last few discussions on various healthful practices, various lifestyle aspects that people can incorporate into their daily lives. And I think I want to remind our listeners, if they haven't yet, to go back and to go listen to those episodes to begin with.
Absolutely.
Because we discussed the New Start principles and what that acronym stands for.
Yeah.
And I always encourage every single patient that I speak to, when I'm recommending a remedy to them, I always remind them it is the cherry on top of the cake. It's not the cake. Your lifestyle choices, your everyday routine, your daily activities, the things that you stay away from will form the bulk of what is going to give you a healthy result. The remedy really is the little bit of extra that you're going to add on top. However, the remedies can be very helpful in various situations. So it's exciting to be able to unpack that today.
Yes, and as we've heard in the past episodes that we had with Dr. Jade, that everything is connected. And we must really look at those. In music, there's a beautiful term, and it's called Gesamtkunstwerk. And that means that everything forms a whole, a unit. But before we are going to have a look at examples of natural remedies in the Bible, we are going to listen to a hymn. And the title is Happy Day.
Sweet promise, I will come again, go preach this gospel to all men. Come quickly, Lord, my soul does say, and bring that happy day. Happy day, oh happy day, happy day, oh happy day. Quickly, Lord, no more delay. Come quickly, happy day. The earth shall blossom as of old, in beauty glorious to behold, and sin and death be found no more. On that immortal shore, happy day, oh happy day, happy day, oh happy day. Come quickly, Lord, no more delay. Come quickly, happy day.
And you are listening to Open Discussion, and we are talking to Dr. Jade. Now, Dr. Jade, please tell us of any examples of natural remedies that we can find in the Bible.
This is an interesting topic, actually, because when I think of when I was training, we were actually warned repeatedly about natural remedies. Very often I heard the statements flying around in hospitals and in ward rounds and things like that. If a patient dared to mention that they used some kind of natural remedy, it usually didn't go down very well with the healthcare professionals around them. And we were often hearing specialists and professors saying that the natural remedies are not safe, they're not tested, and they're very dangerous and things like that. And it is interesting, if we go back to the Bible, how Jesus handled situations, for instance, when he was on earth, when people came to him who had, for instance, in the Bible, where there is a record that they had already been for medical care and for medical treatment, there's no record of Jesus telling them to go back to another doctor or to find a second opinion from another doctor. He actually recommended natural remedies in some cases. In some cases, he touched their eyes. He used mud. He used water. He used his spit, even in some instances. And in most cases, he actually encouraged them to turn around their actions, to do something differently to what they had done before. When he says the words, "Go and sin no more," I think the statement engulfed in that is, what you've been doing until now has obviously not been working. Try something else. And I really like that. But there are other examples as well, like Naaman that had to go into the water to dip. Water treatment is one of the ones we'll talk about. So interesting thoughts
Hydrotherapy,
there.
yes, absolutely. Now, please tell us, where do the natural remedies fit into the New Start lifestyle principle?
Well, as we have just tied it in with the Bible, I would say from the word go that I don't rely on lifestyle choices or the remedies for that matter as the agent that is ultimately going to provide us the healing. God is the only healer. Our physician is Jesus, and
Amen.
None of these things have power in and of themselves without him. So we need our connection with him. He is the life giver. He is the water of life. He is the bread of life. He's all of those things. So our bodies need our crux of what is going to allow our bodies to get the building blocks, to get the nutrition, to get the oxygen, to get the water, to get all the necessary elements that are necessary for sustaining the health of every cell. And then on top of that, we can sometimes boost healing with the natural remedies.
Now, in our previous discussion, you mentioned that we absorb many toxins living in the cities where we do, well, most of us in the cities today. Could you give us a list of some of the remedies that can be used to draw out toxins?
Absolutely. Maybe I can categorize, if we look at natural remedies as a whole, maybe we can categorize them, 3 categories mainly, I would say. One of them is the detox group. So there are various remedies and especially herbs that help to increase the detox abilities of the body, that help to stimulate the detoxing organs to work more effectively, if I can put it that way. And of course, I want to just emphasize to our listeners, I am not a herbalist. I haven't studied the intricate science of many of these things. I have done a lot of my own personal research, but I'm definitely no expert in this. But I will share as I understand it. And as far as I can gather from the various sources that I've gone through, one big category of natural remedies include the detoxing aids, if you can call it that way. Another big category include the remedies that help to fight infection. They work in 2 different ways. Sometimes they will boost the immune system and help the body to fight the infection directly, and other times they actually have antimicrobial properties directly as well, where there's an action against viruses or bacteria or various like fungi or things like that. So we have those antimicrobial remedies, and sometimes there's an overlap. One remedy can sometimes have actions on both sides, of course. And then another big category that we will often use include remedies that literally promote healing, that hasten healing. So, for instance, there are herbs that have what we call a growth proliferator, which literally just fast-tracks the body's healing mechanisms in the healing process. So that's kind of a broad category, and I'm sure that there are many other ways to categorize them, but that's a nice overview.
I read on your website, my eye caught something very interesting, and that was under the heading of how to draw infections out of the body, bentonite clay was mentioned. I have no idea what that is.
Yeah. Funny enough,
how is it used? How is it applied?
Yeah. When I think of Jesus, when he actually used the mud, I wonder if he used clay mud, because clay is known to have detoxing properties, and it actually works in a similar way to charcoal. So bentonite clay and charcoal, I would kind of put as two cousins.
That's the activated charcoal.
Yeah. Both the activated charcoal as well as bentonite clay have an affinity for toxins, a very strong affinity for toxins on a chemical level, and the toxins bind to the particles of either the charcoal or the bentonite clay. And for instance, with charcoal, it's an irreversible bond, so it won't break that bond again. So once the toxins have bound to the charcoal, it won't release it back So if you drink charcoal, for example, and it gets saturated with all those toxins won't release the bond from the charcoal, so it won't get reabsorbed back into the bloodstream. And that is remarkable. Bentonite clay is also one with a strong affinity for toxins, so it helps to draw toxins out. And it literally, the toxins can diffuse through membranes, so it can diffuse through the skin, and we can help, or we can use those remedies to actually draw toxins out through the skin, which is a remarkable remedy and a very non-invasive way
That's very
of
interesting.
pulling things out.
So it's mainly applied externally then, it's not for internal use, like the charcoal, for instance.
Yes, bentonite clay primarily we use externally. You can drink it, but in very small quantities because it will cause severe constipation. Charcoal also has a tendency to kind of draw a lot of moisture to it, so it can also result in a bit of constipation, and people have to be cautious with how much they drink, but it is one that is more likely to be used internally. And if I can maybe categorize our remedies in a different way as well when it comes to the applications, we have ones that we can drink, we have remedies that we can apply to the skin, either through leaving it onto the skin, and then there are also other remedial treatments, if I can put it that way, like the hydrotherapy, which is another category that we can speak about as well. Now, you were talking about bentonite clay and the charcoal, and it is interesting how many different ways there are to use it, because as you mentioned, some of that can be used internally. People can drink charcoal, but they can also use it, for instance, with charcoal. We can wash wounds with charcoal. We can put it directly into wounds.
That's very interesting. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, when you have even irritated eyes and infected parts, infected wounds, you can literally either pack it with charcoal, or you can use charcoal water and wash the wounds with that. And then you can also make poultices, which we don't only use for charcoal and bentonite clay, but there are a host of different herbs and different things that we use to put into a poultice, and I'll explain that in a minute. But those are just a nice couple of examples of ways in which we can actually apply a remedy onto the body, and they have all sorts of different actions to aid healing.
Are there any teas that will fulfill the same function or not really?
Yeah, so I think maybe we can jump to some of the things that we can use internally, and we can run through a few examples of that. And as you've just mentioned, tea is definitely one of the primary ways that we can take herbs. There are a large variety of healing herbs, and as we mentioned, some of them will have a detoxing function, some of them will have an antimicrobial function, and some of them will promote, hastening healing, and many of them have an overlap between that. Maybe if I can give a couple of examples of the very common ones that we use, I can share that with our listeners, but I want to mention that it's hard when you talk about examples because there's an endless list. There's really so much. Some common ones that people can take internally when it comes to herbs include the ones that we can use as antibiotics, if I can put it that way. Now, antibiotics have, the word antibiotic is a difficult one, because when we talk about antibiotics that we drink from prescription medication, most of them are labeled that way if they are working against bacteria. But our herbal remedies often have an overlapping action, not only for bacteria, but also for viruses and fungi and various other things. So some excellent examples of that, one of our most potent antimicrobials is actually onion and garlic. Or those are two examples of really, really good antimicrobials. And the reason why I mention them first is because we typically have these things in our home. And it is so valuable to know that these are herbs with such a powerful action, and when I'm getting sick, I don't necessarily have to run to the nearest health store and buy an expensive product. I can usually do something with something in my house.
Or to a medical practitioner, and I think that is what most of us, a lot of us, many of us do. We run to the doctor and get a prescription, but then we sit with another set of problems. I also saw that you've got a wonderful anti-inflammatory recipe. Which is called the yellow bomb.
We're actually not sure what to call it. It's the name.
It sounds amazing. Please share with us.
So that one we do use. There's no set recipe. Let me put it that way. There's no set recipe. So we've kind of put a recipe on the internet.
You've got a basic.
Exactly. People
structure.
keep asking, how do I make this? But we kind of throw together a couple of things. But the basic principle in that one is mixing garlic with lemon. And when you put the garlic and lemon together and you blend it, in particular if you include lemon skin or lemon peel in that mixture, it has a potent anti-inflammatory effect.
Why the skin?
Apparently the anti-inflammatory properties are very concentrated in the skin, And we have seen it being used in scenarios where we've helped patients with allergic reactions for that. I even gave the mixture to my dog at some point when she had a severe allergic reaction to something. We think it was an insect bite or something. She was swollen in her whole face, her eyes, her eyeballs were swollen, her lips were swollen, her throat was closing.
Good thing.
And we gave her a little bit of that mixture. We couldn't get a lot into her because she didn't like it.
The taste.
But it worked remarkably, and we thought it was coincidental.
That is wonderful.
Repeated a second time, and it also actually worked and literally interrupted the allergic reaction.
So it's the lemon with the peel, and then garlic, fresh garlic, and what else?
That is the base of the recipe, and then you can add other things to that. You can add turmeric because it's also got an anti-inflammatory effect. And a lot of people, when they are taking it for the antimicrobial benefit, like if they're actually sick and fighting a flu or a cold, then we add onion to that as well. And many people will add cayenne pepper and ginger, and eventually honey is a good one. I don't know if I want to waste my honey. It doesn't really make it taste any better. So sometimes I keep the honey for separate. Yeah. But these remedies have such a lot of overlapping actions that it's hard to box them, and they have a wide range of uses. So for this example, it has strong anti-inflammatory uses like in an allergic reaction, but it also has antimicrobial action. So for your infective conditions, even for bronchitis and pneumonia and those sort of things, it works as well. And then we've also seen it working for pain, because a lot of pain has a link with inflammation. So severe back pain, joint pain, etc. We've seen how it really helps even people with severe arthritis.
I just wanted to
often
ask.
Find relief with this mixture if they take it regularly. I should give a disclaimer with this one. It is really much better to take it with meals and with food than on an empty stomach. I have tried it on an empty stomach, and it makes you feel awful. It really feels terrible on your stomach.
I can just imagine
you think you're
that.
going to die. So that is a really nice recipe to use. And jumping back to our antimicrobials, when it comes to having a little basket of helpful things we can access when we are fighting an infection or dealing with an infective problem like an abscess even, that bomb is useful. Our onion and garlic mixtures are useful, which we can make into a tea, or we can basically eat it raw as well with meals. It really feels much better on the stomach. Then other potent antimicrobials include things like oregano. Oregano is quite strong.
I love oregano.
It's really nice as a herb, but we use it in even stronger concentrations when we are treating or using it to help for infections. And you can make teas with it. You can also use the essential oil. You can use it in poultices and various things like that. And then there's a much longer list that we could pull on.
Yes, I saw that you also have
good examples,
rosemary there, lavender, thyme, nasturtium, and then of course the garlic and the onion.
The garlic and onion you can just about put in everywhere.
It seems that is the rudimentary.
Yeah, they are very broad spectrum, so they have very strong microbe action both to bacteria and to what they would term viruses as well as fungi. The other ones you've just mentioned, like rosemary and thyme and lavender, have strong fungal or antifungal effects. So for things like athlete's foot and ringworm, and ringworm isn't really a worm, by the way, it's a fungal infection. Also toenail infections and other nail infections, those are excellent to make teas to soak the affected area and then to apply it. We can also, tea tree is another one that's brilliant for fungal problems. Yeah. So tea tree oil you can never go wrong with that one.
Yeah. So you mainly use those for teas. You don't use them as ingredient for a poultice.
I actually combine all sorts of ways, depending on how serious the problem is. If somebody has a serious problem, I often remind my patients that when we are not going to use pharmaceuticals, it doesn't mean we're not going to do anything. We're going to really go all out to do as much as we can to treat that problem. So we're going to work on the New Start principles first and foremost, and then when it comes to remedies, we're going to try and improve blood circulation to that area. There are various ways to do that. And we're going to use remedies. Sometimes I combine, they must take it internally as a tea, they must apply it in an essential oil form or a cream or a gel, and they must put a poultice over the area as well. And you can combine different herbs. You don't have to necessarily just use one, or alternatively you can alternate between different options. You can alternate different poultices or go from poultice to essential oil to poultice to essential oil, or different ways. And it often also comes down to the practicality. If I'm working at an office and I have a problem in my neck, I don't necessarily want to walk around with a poultice around my neck in the day, but I might be able to apply essential oil there for the day and sleep with a poultice. So it depends on the routine and what is practical.
Dr. Jade, just before we go to our next music item, please talk to us about hydrotherapy.
So hydrotherapy, I think in a nutshell, is geared towards improving blood circulation primarily, and secondarily, it is going to, when applied correctly, it'll boost circulation, but boost immune function. So you don't want to just get the blood to flow more effectively. You want the immune system to be more active. You want extra blood cells, in particular extra white blood cells, to be produced so that they then circulate through the system.
Yeah.
And hydrotherapy targets both of those. And maybe after our music break, we can actually zone in on the different forms of hydrotherapy
That
and
would
what
be
we
great.
can use for that.
You are listening to Adventist Radio Pretoria, and we are talking to Dr. Jade Erasmus. Now we're going to listen to the Emmanuel Quartet, and they are singing Sweet By and By.
There's a land that is fairer than day, and by faith we can see it afar, for the Father waits over the way to prepare us a dwelling place there, in the sweet by and by, we shall meet on that beautiful shore by and by, in the sweet by and by, we shall meet on that beautiful shore. We shall sing on that beautiful shore the melodious songs of the blessed, and our spirits shall sorrow no more, not a sigh for the blessing of rest, in the sweet by and by, we shall meet on that beautiful shore by and by, in the sweet by and by, we shall meet on that beautiful shore. To our bountiful Father above, we will offer a tribute of praise for the glorious gift of His love, and the blessings that hallow our days, in the sweet by and by, we shall meet on that beautiful shore by and by, in the sweet by and by, we shall meet on that beautiful shore.
Adventiste Radio Pretoria, spits jou ore.
And that was the Emmanuel Quartet singing Sweet By and By. Lovely music. Dr. Jade, we touched on hydrotherapy. Let's continue the subject.
So this again is one of those areas where people will often ask me, can you send me a voice note just to tell me what I must do? And my voice note often ends up being a half an hour long, because there are many different techniques that people can use when it comes to hydrotherapy. As we mentioned, the key goal is to improve blood circulation and to boost the immune system. And it is remarkable when you go look at the research how effectively hydrotherapy techniques can actually achieve this goal. And it's something that we don't really think that we can do unless we take something for it. You know, people often think they have to take a lot of supplements, or they have to do weird and wonderful things to get the immune system to wake up. But something as simple as a bath can really actually do that.
Just a plain, simple bath.
So we'll start with that. A plain, simple bath, soaking
warm bath.
in warm water, actually improves the blood circulation and in particular improves digestion. So when somebody has an upset stomach, bloatedness, they've maybe eaten something that was a little bit upsetting and they're trying to calm down that uneasy feeling in the stomach, a warm bath can often help with that.
And if you drink a glass of hot water?
Drinking warm water definitely also
That
helps.
also
Drinking warm water on an empty stomach is most effective when it comes to using that as a remedy. And then, of course, maybe while we're talking about the drinking component of that, when we drink water or fluids on an empty stomach, that liquid is actually absorbed directly through the stomach lining. It doesn't have to go through the whole digestive tract. So that is when we hydrate the most effectively, which is what we also mentioned in our previous episode.
I remember.
That, you know, drinking liquids with a meal,
Yes.
inhibits the effective digestion of that meal, but it also doesn't really help to hydrate more effectively.
Okay, so actually then first thing in the morning when we wake up, we should have a glass of warm water.
For sure, that is the ideal.
And then wait an hour and then we can have our first meal.
Exactly. And what we also mentioned previously is we want to eat a meal, make sure that that stomach finishes digesting that meal before we add the next lot of food. But that last little hour while I'm really, really hungry is the prime time to hydrate and to focus on hydration, because that is when my stomach is empty, so that liquid can absorb into my bloodstream. But now coming back to what we can apply externally, we have our water treatments starting with an effective, literally straightforward plain bath. But then when we start adding our water treatments in contrast, we get a next level of benefit from that. So here is, I'm
the
looking
hot
at
and the cold, that sounds scary. I'm
looking at your
anticipating
face.
it.
People don't really like when we suggest this, and believe it or not, my daughter was probably one of my first shall we say, test subject when it came to testing this. She was 4 years old when I first really learnt about the good home remedies that you can do when it comes to contrast hydro. And I resorted to just explain to her what it was that we're trying to achieve. I explained to her that when you are applying warm water, the blood vessels dilate. That is the reaction, and we can see that in hot weather, the surface blood vessels dilate and our veins are nice and prominent and we can see them clearly. It is because the warm temperature literally triggers vasodilation. But when we apply a cold temperature to the skin, those blood vessels automatically restrict and constrict. And what that does is, because the surface blood vessels actually constrict, we are diverting more blood to the muscle tissue below. Now, there are two main benefits that come from that. First of all, we are redirecting the blood, but also if we then alternate between the hot and cold temperatures, we're actually creating a pump action in the blood vessels. So the constriction with the cold and the dilation with the hot, and constriction with the cold and dilation with the hot, causes this pump action through the, so that the blood vessels themselves are pushing blood forward more quickly and more effectively, which means that they don't rely only on the pumping action of the heart, but then the whole system actually pushes the blood circulation forward.
That is absolutely amazing. I'm just thinking, doesn't it place a lot of stress on the heart?
It doesn't actually. It makes the work of the heart easier, because then it means that instead of pumping against resistance, the vessels are actually helping it, moving the blood forward. And it is a tiring process for the body. People sometimes feel tired after a session of treatment like this, but mostly because there's a lot of energy devoted.
How long is a session like that?
Yeah, so
if we try it at home, for instance.
Exactly. So one cycle of a contrast treatment would be we start with hot. So we'll do 3 minutes of hot, and then we'll switch to 30 seconds of cold. The effect of the cold wears off quicker than the warm. So we do about 3 minutes warm and then the 30 seconds of cold. And what you want to do is you want to actually try and contrast that water as much as you can. So you want to make the hot as hot
really
as you
hot.
can, but you please do not want to burn. I don't want anybody arriving at the nearest casualty telling the staff there that they put boiling water on themselves because Dr. Jade said so. You want to make the water really, really warm, but it must please not burn the skin. And if you have knowledge that your sensation is not very good on that area, like people with their feet, and they know that my sensation is actually limited based on diabetes or something like that, they have to be extra careful not to make the water too hot, because they won't feel if it burns. But you want to make the water effectively warm, and then you want to make your cold as you can. So you want to add ice and ice blocks to that.
Or you can take a cold shower. Is that cold enough?
You can do hot and cold contrast showers so that you get the systemic effect, or you can use buckets and put the affected body part in there. So if I've got a painful wrist or a painful foot or ankle or something, I can have 2 buckets with contrasting temperatures and basically do 3 minutes on the hot, 30 seconds cold, and that will be one cycle. And you want to ideally repeat that in 3 cycles, all the way up to 7 cycles, so that you do hot, cold up to 7 times and end off with a cold. And that will give such a tremendous boost to the blood circulation that very often we have actually used it in cases of severe pain. Like one patient that came had septic arthritis in her elbow with excruciating pain. She was screaming and shouting and in agony. And by the time we finished a good cycle of, I think we did 6 or 7 cycles for her of the hot and cold contrast treatment, her pain had relieved so much just with that one session that she could more effectively move the elbow herself without screaming when we touch it.
Wow.
And she was saying that this is faster in action than pain medication that she had taken before. And she had
a wonderful effect.
It's remarkable, because she had actually used morphine before for that same pain. So it was profound, and we've seen this in action many, many times. So
my mouth is gaping here.
Contrast hydro is profoundly effective.
You know, I'm thinking 2 years ago I broke my back during a riding accident, and I was also on morphine. And when I could start to move again, of course I could only take a shower, but I wish I knew about this because I'm sure it would have helped the pain, of course, and gave my body a boost to recover quicker.
You're mentioning something that's so important, and that is that when people are taking pain medication, of course, sometimes pain is excruciating, and I'll take rib fractures for an example. It's part of the essential management for a rib fracture to manage the pain, because otherwise the person doesn't breathe and they actually get lung problems for over an extended period of time. So you have to manage the pain. It is not just because the person is too much of a baby and that they're not dealing with the pain, if I can put it that way. But the challenge with pain medication is that they don't actually enhance the healing. In fact, they usually limit the healing because they add a toxic load onto the liver, they add a toxic load onto the whole system, and they can in many ways actually increase inflammation, systemic inflammation. So if we do have an effective alternative to pain medication, if we can actually give the person hydrotherapy in combination with some of the herbal remedies and things like that, then it's just a win-win situation because you're boosting healing while relieving the pain.
It makes complete sense. But I just want to remind our listeners that we're not advising anybody to do anything unnecessarily and go against their personal physician's advice.
For sure. I think the main focus of these remedies, and that is one of the the ways that I also explain it to my patients, is that sometimes it is really helpful to have a couple of things in your little back pocket to have available to try in an urgent situation, sometimes in the process of getting to the point where you get professional help or get to the nearest physician or whatever it can be. And sometimes you try these things and they provide enough relief that you sometimes don't have to drive to the nearest casualty, but it's not necessarily a replacement. It's an alternative to try and to see how it works.
I like that, an alternative. What I also like is that it's a lifestyle application and it's a lifestyle change that must be applied, and each individual must make that decision for him or herself every day. It is not a replacement for as such.
And I think to add to that, when I have decided that I'm going to start using a natural remedy, say for instance I am Mr. Joe and I have decided today I'm going to try this hydrotherapy, it doesn't mean that I have gone against the medical system. It doesn't mean that I have deserted my previous faith in science. It means that I'm going to try something that I know has a very low risk. I'm going to try something that is not going to add a toxic load into my system, and I'm going to see what the response is of my body. And it is a tremendous thing for me as a medical doctor to have been in a position where I can recommend these things and see the results. It's been quite remarkable to see the effect of them.
What advice would you give to people that is beginning to set out? They're listening and they want to set out with this lifestyle change. How would you advise and encourage them?
I think the first thing is probably repeating what we have mentioned before, and that is that remedies are the second option and our primary focus is going to be on lifestyle things. So yes, there are urgent situations, and maybe today I have an urgent pain that I need to manage. I have hurt my ankle or something like that. And obviously this is not the moment where I'm going to make all my lifestyle changes before I start using a natural remedy. But the principle remains the same, that in general, my day-to-day choices need to begin with the New Start principles. They need to begin with my healthy living and abstaining from the things that are toxic to my system. And then in addition to that, I can support my body through various natural remedies. But those natural remedies are also going to be by far more effective if I'm supporting my body with the right nutrition, with the right exercise, with the right fresh air, with a low stress life, etc., etc.
The New Start.
It always comes back to the New Start.
Yes, we are talking to Dr. Jade, and now we're going to take a short break listening to Pieter Badenhorst, and he will sing Stortreëns van Seën.
Stortreëns van Seën sal neerdal, dit is beloof aan die land. Heerlike tyd van verkwikking, kom uit die Vader se hand. Stortreëns van Seën, stortreëns van Seën dal neer, druppels val nou al genade. die stortreën so Heer. Stortreëns van Sion sal neerdal, heerlik verfrissend van hom. Hoor hoe die lieflike ruising nader steeds naderby kom. Stortreëns van Sion, stortreëns van Sion dal neer, druppels vol nou al genadig, skenk ons die stortreëns o Heer. Stortreëns van Sion sal neerdal, stuur hulle hoor ons o Heer, skenk die verkokende buie, wil die belofte vereer. Stortreëns van Sion, stortreëns van Sion dal neer, druppels val nou al genadig, skenk ons die stortreëns o Heer. Stortreëns van Sion sal neerdal, mag dit vandag nog gebeur. Ons roep tot Hierome Sion, stel ons o Heer nie teleur. Stortreëns van Sion, stortreëns van Sion dal neer, druppels van nou al genadig, skenk ons die stortreëns o Heer.
Adventiste Radio Pretoria, spits jou ore.
And welcome back to Open Discussion with Dr. Jade Erasmus. So, Dr. Jade, let us go back to poultices.
Yeah, so we have been talking about various ways to use the herbs, and as we started off, we began by saying that most of these herbs you can use in different forms. You can make teas, you can use essential oils, you can use creams and gels and various applications to the skin. And then we spoke about hydrotherapy as another add-on. But this program wouldn't be complete unless we talk about poultices, because it's one of the ways that we use herbs and various other natural remedies directly onto the skin. Now, we should also mention here that the skin is a prime organ for absorption. And we forget this, you know, we bring our skin into contact with various things, various chemicals, cleaning agents, etc., etc. Anything that
Even
touches
our
your skin,
moisturizers.
every skincare
Sure.
product,
Yeah.
everything that you put onto your head and onto your body. I often mention to people, you know, if you look at a product and you stand with it in your hand, you should ask yourself, if I don't want this in my cells, then I
Yeah.
shouldn't put it against my skin, because
Yeah.
it really, it absorbs.
Yeah.
Now, the positive side of that is that we can also use the skin to actually deliver things into the body. So obviously with medicinal creams and gels and things like that, they will absorb. But poultices are also excellent for that. And if we're technically more correct, we will say that there are poultices which will draw something out of the skin and compresses which are there to deliver something into the skin. So a compress example would be using something like castor oil, which absorbs into the skin, and it has a potent anti-inflammatory effect, but it is also used with tremendous success to break up abnormal tissue, and we have seen it used on tumors, and I don't make any claims to say that this is the magic cure and it's going to take away your cancer, but we have seen how long-term use of it, sometimes over 3 to 6 months, has actually shrunk not only cancer nodules, but also other fibrous nodules, breast nodules, bone spurs, etc. I have seen this with my own eyes. I've recommended it to patients.
That is extremely interesting.
It's phenomenal, and I've
castor oil.
It's remarkable, and
Unbelievable.
I cannot explain to you how astonished
Yeah.
I have been, because many of these things, when I first recommended them to patients, I would say to them, "Listen, I have no idea if this is going to work.
So
do you
how
want to
do
try
you
it?"
apply it? Do you put it in cotton wool and with
So
a little
there's-
bandage, or how do you go about?
Yeah, there's different ways, and it depends on which part of the body.
Yeah.
For an area where you can, for instance,
So, for instance, your foot.
if you put it on your foot, you can put it onto a piece of cloth, and you put it against the skin, and you put a piece of plastic over, or you can just put a sock over it. The oil tends to stain linen, so we always say to people, have a layer that protects your linen and your sheets, and you can sleep with it at nighttime. The other alternative is just to rub it in like a cream. I had a patient with a bone spur on her foot, and she didn't want to put a poultice on. It was too hot. She didn't want to do a heavy thing, so she literally rubbed it on like a foot cream and she put her socks on at night and she went to sleep like that. And after 4 months, her bone spur was gone.
Sure.
So it is
wonderful.
It's remarkable, and this is something that has been proven in various research studies that it is effective for things like that. Obviously, it is more effective if you're also supporting the body from the inside, and if you're following a diet and a lifestyle that is also anti-inflammatory and that is anti-cancer, etc., etc. The two will work together. So that is a compressed example. And when we talk about poultices, there are various poultices that help to draw toxins out of the skin. We've spoken about charcoal early on in the program. We've spoken about bentonite clay, and they will literally draw toxins from the skin. But we also use it to treat things like abscesses. I have seen severe septic abscesses on the skin where there's green pus coming out of it.
Yeah.
Nothing questionable about the fact that it is a really badly infected wound. And using regular charcoal poultices, swapping them out for fresh ones every 2 to 4 hours at least, will be profoundly effective to
Do you apply it
clear
with the
that
same
up,
method? Piece of cloth, wrap it, and
Exactly.
plastic over it.
I basically
Cling wrap, for instance.
Yeah. I basically fold a little burrito, if I can put it that way. I put my poultice mixture in the center of a piece of cloth, fold over the edges, and then put it against the skin. Usually you want a plastic layer over that just to protect the clothing or the socks or the linen or whatever, and then you can bandage it up depending on which area of the body you're using it for. Of course, big charcoal poultices can be used on the abdomen to draw toxins from the liver as well, and we use it for patients who are coming off things that they are trying to get rid of.
That is astounding.
It's phenomenal. Detoxing from
so
caffeine,
it's
detoxing from
externally
sugar.
applied, but the liver can cleanse itself.
Well, it's through the blood circulation, and you've got a lot of blood vessels on the abdomen. So when they come side by side into contact with that charcoal, the toxins are drawn from the blood. So that's really remarkable. And obviously, if you add that to combining it with detoxing herbs and a good lifestyle, you get a profound effect with that. Other examples of poultices are, for instance, grated potato. I know this sounds bizarre, and when I was first told about it, I thought, really, these people have lost their minds. But potato is a drawer. It draws infection. It draws inflammation. It also helps for swelling. So injuries, swollen knees, arthritic injuries, as well as infected injuries like abscesses, alternating between potato and charcoal or potato and bentonite clay or things like that is profound. I can't explain to people how big the results are that we have seen.
Your normal common garden potato.
Absolutely. Yeah.
My word, it's just amazing.
Yeah. And there are many more examples. I mean, we could talk for 2 hours, so I will leave it at some of the crux ones. But
I just want to clarify that listening to you, you apply them separately. You don't make a mixture of
you can
all of
actually
the ingredients.
Mix them. Yeah, if I grate potato, it often has that extra wateriness with it. So sometimes if I'm wanting to draw out inflammation and toxins from an area, or especially if there's infection, I will add a spoon of charcoal to that mixture so that you have potato and charcoal together, and it binds the excessive moisture, but it makes a good combination. And then
tell me, do you experience any sense of being uncomfortable
when you
sensation
have them on?
When you are wearing these?
Some people will find that because it stimulates extra blood flow to that area, that can cause a temporary bit of discomfort, but I've never heard of somebody having excruciating pain. However, it depends a little bit. Like if there's an abscess and there's a strong drawing effect from a potato, sometimes people can have discomfort for a period of time. Another one is using ginger poultices, where you grate ginger. That is working, well, it'll be effective for particularly deep-seated pain or kind of joint pain or bone pain or things like that. Broken bones, broken ribs, broken backs, or injuries like that, it works really well for that. And there they will tell you that there's a very clear sensation of heat. They will feel that after a few minutes, it'll have this hot sensation over that area. Not necessarily burning, but people describe it in different ways. But you can see in the person's reaction that there's an activity happening in that area.
There's definitely improvement. I find this so interesting, and I'm sure there's many listeners out there with the same opinion. Dr. Jade, if people want to visit you personally, how do they go about it? Do you offer special programs?
So Verity Centre has a triple focus. We have information on our website so that people can access information sheets. And I want to encourage our listeners, there are summary sheets there of different herbal remedies and poultices. And
which just give us the website.
Website address is www.veritycentre.com. And they can scroll through the different tabs there to find the documents where there's a host of different information sheets. It's actually a small selection at the moment. We're still adding, so people can let us know if there are topics that they find they would like to see more information about. The other thing that we're hoping to do soon is release a couple of more videos where people can actually see demonstrations. Sometimes people want to see, how do I make the poultices, how do I apply the hydrotherapy techniques, etc. So we hope to do that soon.
And they can find those where on the website, or do you post it on YouTube?
Yeah, we will probably put them on the website, or links to them at the on the website as well, and then we will be posting them on the Clash of Minds YouTube channel. And then if people do want to come and visit us in person, we try to customize our programs. We have a 10-day detox program, but we also try and adjust it according to how many days people have available and, of course, what their actual problem is. So they're welcome to contact us. All our contact details are on the website. So if they visit the website, they will find the different ways that they can reach out to us. They'll find the health assessment form where they can send their basic medical details to us, and we try and put together a customized program for individuals, so we'll chat to them directly.
So it's mostly then one-on-one sessions, or do you take groups as well, 3 or 4?
We do take groups. We don't have a very large intake capacity. At the moment, we have sort of a limit of 4 guests at a time. It depends a little bit about, it depends on whether those are couples or families staying together or things like that. But people can reach out, and, we can always try, and as we chat with them over the phone, figure out what their individual needs are.
That is fantastic. Dr. Jade, now, if there's somebody out there or more than one listener and they want to get in touch with you, how can they contact you?
If people have a direct question for me, in particular with a personal health issue that they would like to discuss, they're welcome to email me. My email address at the office is jade@veritycentre.com. And then they're also welcome to send me a direct WhatsApp to my work number. And I like WhatsApp because we can use voice notes, especially if I'm on the run. So people can send me their information, and I can answer them on WhatsApp voice notes. So that will be at 076 779 1892.
Some final thoughts for our listeners.
If I can encourage our listeners once again, as we have done in our previous programs, it is to remember that God is our healer, Jesus is our physician, and whatever we are hearing, even the information that we have shared today, if people are thinking, wow, I have questions about this, I don't know if I can trust this information, I don't really know where I stand with any of this, I want to encourage our listeners to take that issue to the Lord. Pray for His guidance and pray for Him to lead them to the right information for their particular problem. He knows us as individuals, He knows what our bodies need, and I believe that as people take those problems to Him, He will direct their paths as He has promised.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jade, for being in the studio with us today. It was a tremendous privilege to have you here.
It was great to be here. Thank you for having me.
So remember the website where you can also find a lot of information, www.veritycentre.com. Thank you for listening, and remember, God's plan is always the best for us because He loves us. And you can contact us here at Adventist Radio Pretoria on 060-248-1172.
Adventiste Radio Pretoria. Vanuit die voet van die Magaliesberg kom die klank van die kruis, deur stories, onderhoude en musiek wat inspireer, opbou en inlig. Stap saam met ons oor kruine en deurdale van profesie en groei nader, steeds nader aan Jesus elke sekond van elke program hier op Adventiste Radio Pretoria. Wie 'n oor het, laat hom hoor.